Back on Locked On NHL Game Night. Guys, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, find us here after every game and the days in between. Like right now, as we are talking about what is still a pretty entertaining Stanley Cup Final between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, even though I'm not sure what we got in the last 20 minutes of Game 3. I hesitate to call it hockey. I'm Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman here. Tyler, we talked most of last night after Game 3 about how bad Edmonton was, and that is a big story, but what feels inevitable, what we talk about again, is how good the Panthers were. I mean, the Panthers sucked them in to playing their game and did it all night long. And now all of a sudden, there are some major concerns for the Oilers, concerns that we have heard in the past, right? That it's a two-man team. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, this whole postseason, they were looking like much more than that. And yet Florida has limited them to that again. The McDavid and or Leon Draisaitl have been on the ice for 8 of Edmonton's 9 goals in this series. And I know the Panthers fans that are in the comments think that McDavid just isn't good. They're the only fan base that thinks that. But I choose to say that McDavid is the best in the world, but the Panthers are doing a really good job on him, especially when they're playing at home.
Cam, anytime you have DJ Khaled DJing pregame, anytime you have Bam Adebayo, defensive-oriented basketball star, slamming the drum pregame, you had to figure defense was going to be the name of the game for the Florida Panthers in Game 3. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me why. But the pictures were there pregame.
The writing was on the wall.
The writing was on the wall. It was chipped and engraved into the ice down in Sunrise, Florida. Look, the reality is McDavid and Draisaitl, tremendous players, out-of-this-world players, 2 probable future Hall of Famers. Definitely one, most likely the other. You can't be perfect every night. And when you have 2 guys that you can focus on 2 separate lines, think about it like Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. At what point do you put those guys on the same line? Is this the game?
Which we have seen a little bit, yeah.
Is this the game we need to see both of those guys on the same line? Do we need to see Jeff Skinner activated and be put on McDavid's line? Because I think that could really help too. But whatever happened in Game 3, you can credit Florida defensively. They had great puck movement. The forecheck was there. The back check was there. The fire was there, and we didn't see that from Edmonton. But Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, they're human. They did not play well, combined -3 in Game 3. How do you compete with the depth on Florida? Because at this point, through 3 games, even though the first 2 games needed overtime plus, we've seen that the depth on Florida is much greater. And so as the series progresses and guys get tired, I want to maybe refrain from saying tired because there's so many days in between.
yeah, too full here.
But you can see that the depth on this Florida team, lines 1 through 4, are making an impact. I mean, what happened last night with Edmonton? Not only did lines 3 and 4, bottom 6, totally evaporate, but all you do, if you're Florida, is take care of the top 2 lines, and they got that job done last night. So credit Florida. How can Edmonton, how can they change things? McDavid and Draisaitl, unfortunately, if you're Edmonton, they've got to figure it out.
And part of the problem with all the penalties they took in Game 3 isn't just the obvious of like, hey, you're shorthanded the whole time, but it's not putting those guys on the ice in favorable situations. Both those guys have been out on penalty kills, but like you're not putting them in positions to score. When that's what you're getting, when you have to have them on the ice at this point to score a goal, like that is the biggest problem. Not even just that they score, like Florida scored on 3 of 11 power plays,
3 of 11.
But that's all 8, all the other 8 that you killed off. That's all time that McDavid and Draisaitl are not getting scoring chances. And you saw it in this one. Like, obviously we know with Edmonton, power play or even strength, when those guys are on the ice, their whole game is for McDavid to carry the puck in the zone. Like, and he's the best. He's the best. So most of the time it works. Game 3, it didn't work. They had to dump. How many times they have to dump it in? That's not Edmonton's game. That's Florida to a T.
They took a ton of dumps.
A lot of dumps. Just a lot of dumps.
So many flushes.
Playing like dump, truly. But I mean, seriously, they had to dump and chase the whole game, and that's just not what they are. You talked about the -3 combined. That is a really damning stat for those two guys in game 3. And it's kind of interesting to talk about because this game was the 11th time the Panthers have scored 5 or more goals in a playoff game this year, which I think they're one of only 5 teams to ever do that. But it was their defense that stood out. And as much as we talk about the goaltender on the other side, how about Sergei Bobrovsky, man? He was excellent through the first 3 games of the final last year and then took a big dip, was not very good in the final the year before in 2023. He has been money, absolute money. 42 saves in each of the first 2 games, 237 goals against average, and a 928 save percentage. Let's go back to Stu Skinner for a second. 866 save percentage in this series. Bobrovsky on the other end, 928. We said if Florida can dominate the goaltender position, they will win this series. They're definitely doing this so far. It's kind of been a little unsung, but Bobrovsky's been awesome.
I would say that game 1, he was tremendous. So was Skinner to that point.
True. Yep.
They both made tremendous saves on both ends of the ice. Game 2, he was really good. Not great, really good. And game 3, this was his best performance, I'd say.
Yeah.
But it was also, to your point and what we just discussed, when you're being forced to dump the puck because you've committed 11 penalties, you're not putting yourself in a position to push and be aggressive offensively. They really needed 1 or 2 or 3, maybe even 4 shorthanded chances, but we saw none of that. We really did not see any legitimate shorthanded chances for the Edmonton Oilers offensively. But when they did get chances in front of Bobrovsky, he made the save.
Yep.
And he was brawling. And then Skinner, that first goal he let up wasn't that great. He was out of position, and that kind of set the stage for what transpired the rest of that game.
Skinner was swimming on that first goal. He had no idea where
what he was doing.
It was bizarre. And to your point in there too, like Bobrovsky had some big saves early in this game. Like before Edmonton was completely out of this thing, they had some chances before it even got to 2-0, and Bobrovsky made some really nice saves that kind of flew under the radar because of how the rest of the game went. But you just need to be better than the other goalie a lot of the time, and he has been much better than the other goalie, much better than Stu Skinner. There's no talk as to whether Sergei Bobrovsky will not be playing in game 4. Now, the last thing I kind of want to talk about in this Florida dominance to close out this segment is it feels like, Tyler, maybe this is just even too basic that it's cliched, but if this is the way this series is going to go, like if Edmonton is going to be like, yeah, we'll answer the bell. We can be tough too. We can hit back. This might not make it back to South Florida for game 6. This is going to be a quick series. If that's the way that Edmonton thinks, that's the statement that Edmonton thinks they need to make.
Probably not. Now, I will say we have been talking about just how dominant Florida has been for almost 48 hours now.
Yep.
But what I will say is Edmonton has the talent, and we've seen it already. They could very well dominate game 4 and win game 4 on the road. They've had success on the road over the course. I think they came into last night's I think they've won 6 of their last 8 road games in these playoffs. So we very well could be talking about something entirely different after Thursday, because I wouldn't be shocked if Edmonton bounces back and wins game 4. Certainly everything that we've talked about, the tone in which we've said it in, pats Florida on the back, but one win for Edmonton, and we've got a 2-2 series. So part of me, as we continue to talk about this series, the Stanley Cup Final, I'm trying to catch myself and make sure that we also present the idea, the concept that all Edmonton has to do is win game 4, and this series is tied at 2, and game 3 really holds no bearings on the future of this series.